Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in and joining us for TLC Presents Todd-versations. Please, everybody in our World Galactic audience, say hello to Dr. Jenny Tucker. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us today and being a part of this. I cannot tell you how I've been looking forward to this all week long. This is the highlight of my calendar this week in the business world. I am just such a fan of you and what you do, the NOP, the process. I've learned so much over my career by being able to participate in the Hill and participate with USDA, and to have you here and to help inform and educate and uplift the process, as well as maybe share some stuff that people don't realize that's going on. So I'm going to dive into some questions, but before we do that, I think it's important that everybody gets to know you. So folks, again, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jennifer Tucker. Jenny is the Deputy Administrator of AMS, which is Agricultural Marketing Service at the National Organic Program. She served as the Associate Deputy Administrator of the NOP from 2011 to 2018. Before joining the USDA, she served as a group facilitator and organizational development consultant, working primarily with scientific and technical government and nonprofit organizations. Pay attention, kids. She's earned a BA in Environmental Sciences from Wesleyan University, an MS in Management from Purdue, and a PhD in Science and Technology Studies from Virginia Tech. Absolutely a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much, Jenny, for joining me. If you'll indulge me just 1 second, because I had the microphone, I could do it anyways, but I want to touch on something really quickly before we get into questions and back and forth that is really important to me. One thing about this platform that I've created and trying to do is about uplifting people, uplifting brands and stuff. And something that I feel very passionately about is that I don't think enough people say thank you to folks like you and people that are the unsung heroes that are doing things inside of our government from administration to administration. You guys devote your life to serving our country. And a lot of times we only hear, so often about the bad or the negative is heard, or maybe just the issue of the moment. Yet every day you and your colleagues show up and move this country forward. And I really don't feel like you guys necessarily get the props you deserve. So I wanted to say thank you. I know all the people that are watching us hopefully are in their cars at the desk, hiding from the boss, whatever they're doing. They're saying thank you. But I am really, truly honored and glad that you're here today. And I hope after all this tomfoolery, you will be too. So a big thank you from me to you.
Really, really nice of you, Todd. And it really does mean an awful lot. We will have arguments and conflicts and differences of opinion and differences of values, and occasionally pausing and thanking each other for their work. So I will return the thank you to you. Thank you for setting up this forum for this kind of conversation.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So let's dive in, because I'm excited to talk. I'm excited to educate some people about what's going on. So my hunch is that a lot of people know the acronyms USDA, NOP, and I think you would agree with me that if you're in the government sector and if you can't understand the acronyms, you're going to make no points playing Scrabble, right? So the NOP, which is the National Organic Program, can you just kind of tell us what the National Organic Program is and what its function is?
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity to sort of set the context here. National Organic Program is a regulatory program that operates as a public-private partnership. And so as a regulatory program, it's interesting, we actually sit in the agricultural marketing service. And so we have a little bit of a dual role in that we are regulating, overseeing a industry, but we are also developing it and building it and advancing it. And so that can lead to just an interesting array of items in the mission. And so important things that the program does is we set the standards. And so I think we'll talk today about regulatory priorities. So we set the standards on what the seal means. We oversee the public-private partner aspect of it, meaning we oversee our network of third-party certifiers that are literally operating around the world. And then we have a compliance and enforcement division that goes after the bad guys. Amidst that, we're also negotiating international trade arrangements to make trade easier for legitimate businesses, while also protecting the market, ensuring fair systems are literally around the globe. And then we have an entire systems team that is working on all the new technology for tracking data and managing data about organic businesses, all to support the Oversight and Enforcement Division. So it's a lovely group of people. We're in the mid 60s now in terms of a head count, but really it's an entire network of certifiers and inspectors and certification staff that we're really partnering with, while also regulating in this very unique food system.
And the way you framed that up, it's massive, right? I mean, it's a massive undertaking of what you guys do every day with just 60 people. I mean, it's a big job.
Yes, we are really lucky. We've been able to grow over the last few years. We've gotten additional funding from Congress, which a lot of people in the organic community have really campaigned for and pushed for, and yet the organic industry is still growing. And so we kind of kid that, though it's sort of half in jest, that as the organic industry has grown and we have grown, we still are kind of maintaining a rate of one NOP staff member for every $1 billion in U.S. sales. So OTA just announced that we hit $62 billion in U.S. sales last year. And sure enough, we've got about 62 people right now. And that's actually held true for the last, eight or so years, that the growth in the industry, we are matching that growth, but it's still the enormity of impact of one staff member for $1 billion of sales is sort of intriguing on a daily basis, just to remember the impact that a fairly small program can have in this type of public-private partnership. It's a model that I actually really respect and honor and want to protect.
Well, I hope we keep funding and overfunding the NOP. If I just have a personal asterisk to put on what you just said, I think it's amazing. I think back to my tenure and being around. I don't think back 35 plus years ago, anybody in the room was thinking the word billion. And now sitting here going 62. I remember, as it started to ramp up, like, oh my Lord, this is amazing. And to think that we're going to that point and we're going to be, at 100 and 150, and it's going to continue to blossom and grow, because I think this is just such a valuable part of our food system and our food conversation. So that's exciting to hear. So let's get you to 63 employees, 63 billion. That's the mantra today. Keep marching forward. So wanted to get back a little bit to the NOP itself and talking a little bit about your upcoming priorities, because I think it's really important that people need, I think, to understand, again, not how big and the scope of projects that you take on, but really specifically, what is it you guys are doing? Because they just don't know. And I think we I think it's something we want to work to try to help inform.
So certainly there's been a lot of conversations in the organic community about standard setting. And that is certainly a very, very important area of priority for us. We are working on our final rule for strengthening organic enforcement, which is going to implement a number of National Organic Standards Board recommendations that needed to be blended together in a kind of an omnibus enforcement role. And so I think that final rule is going to have a very significant impact in protecting the market. We're also in the final stages of origin of livestock. That's open for public comment. And once that closes, so everybody wants to move full speed ahead towards a final action there. Also, the national list rules, there's been a lot of interest in inerts. And really, we got to clean up that EPA list 3 and 4, starting to get a little bit into the nuance and the details. But there are some out-of-date listings in the national list that really need to be updated. And so that is a priority for us. And national list gets really technical and really wonky really fast, but it's also really important for organic farmers. The materials that they're using every day impacts the farm and the processing plant every single day. So it's, oh, well, national list rules, they just happen. No, national list rules need to happen. And so
Right.
I think that's a reorientation we've made over the last few years to really keep those moving very, very quickly. Once the NOSB makes a recommendation, we tend to move to rulemaking on national list rules really quickly. So those are going to all continue to be priorities for us in the standards or regulatory realm. Other priorities are implementing, finalizing our import certificates. That's part of the Farm Bill. It's also part of the strengthening organic enforcement role. But there's a lot of systems and new processes that will really evolve from nothing, that will give us data that we've never had before. Huge priority. Continuing to oversee our certifiers and continuing to enforce the standards with high-profile fraud investigations, all the way down to complaints about somebody advertising as organic at a farmer's market who isn't certified. So we really continue the enforcement, overseeing the global control systems, building new standards, and engaging the community. And this event is part of that engagement.
Right. Well, I tell you what, after what you just said, with 62 people, you guys work Saturdays and Sundays, I'm assuming.
Occasionally Saturday and Sundays work does get involved.
Well, you know, when you talk about the scope of what you're doing, and you know that you are really out protecting every stakeholder that has made the investment, who's put the energy, who's found the passion, who's found their purpose to be in the organic space. We need their support. And when you think about the money, and when you think about like for instance, public comment, you mentioned public comment on livestock. I don't think, maybe people don't realize that every single person has an opportunity to share their voice and help shape what our government is doing. And I know I say this all the time. It's sometimes we get stuck in the world where 10% are speaking for the other 90. And I'm trying to get the other 90 to kind of go, well, I'd like to say something if it's important to you. And if it touches you in some way, we need people to participate.
One of the most important things I feel about my job is protecting the process. The organic standards are public, they're transparent, they're open, which means that the conflict is open and transparent. And NOSB boards the board meetings tend to be very, very engaged with different people expressing different opinions. And I'm just pleased that everyone's there expressing opinions, and that we are holding the space to enable that to happen, to provide that kind of structure for the dialogue, and then to carry forward those recommendations.
I agree. I hope people recognize, from some of this, that their opportunity to make change and to be a part of change is laying in front of them. And it's there. It's literally there for the taking. You're not emailing, you're not calling me saying, hey, what do you think? It's out there in the ethos of the world for them to sit and type, or to call, write a letter, whatever they want to do. And I think it's important that we remember that. So I want to shift gears a little bit into the National Organic Standard Board, acronym NOSB. You've in the process in the beginning, and you guys are, the board has got a fairly large makeup, and it rotates people out. It cycles through people and stuff, and people are constantly, you're up looking for new people to come in and to join. So I'd like to just kind of start with, what is the NOSB? Let's start with what it is and give people an idea of, first off, volunteer organization, the NOSB is. So volunteer, the big V word, working hard. I know people that are on it. I know how many hours they're putting in to do it, and they're serving every stakeholder in this industry. It's amazing. So please, could you share with us what the NOSB is about?
It's really a wonderful part of a systems of systems framework. And so the National Organic Standards Board, and so now you've defined the acronym for us, for those keeping track at home, a new acronym.
Scrabble word.
Scrabble board.
Scrabble word. I'm writing it down.
So the NOSB, we can call it that now that we defined the acronym. It is an advisory board, which means its charter is to provide advice to USDA and the Secretary of Agriculture on the national list and organic standards and other elements of implementing the standards. The board is unique in that it has some very specific responsibilities where the program can't do certain things without the board. So for example, synthetic if somebody wants to use a synthetic in crop production, we can't say that's okay unless the board has actually recommended that it be added to the national list. So they have some very specific sort of mandates through the Organic Foods Production Act. It is a diverse group. It represents farmers and processors, and there's a retailer seat, and public interest, consumer advocacy, environmentalists, scientists, which I think is great. It does bring a whole lot of different perspectives. So what they do is they evaluate all sorts of elements of the implementation of the Organic Foods Production Act, starting with a national list, but extending to other areas as well. They hear feedback from the entire organic community, as well as consumers and other stakeholders involved. And then when they can reach a 2/3 consensus, 2/3 agreement on something, that's called a 2/3 decisive vote, that becomes a recommendation to the USDA. And we do take those recommendations seriously.
Absolutely.
The vast majority of recommendations have been moved forward by USDA in some way. And so we are looking at the ones right now that continue to be outstanding to determine kind of what might the priority be, what are the next steps, and being kind of clear with what's going to move forward, what's not going to move forward. I try to be very open and honest about decision criteria, because everybody, if you're going to have a voice in the process, you deserve to know what happened at the end and why. Yeah.
Well, 100%. And I think the most important thing about the organic industry is transparency and integrity, right? And I think that this process with the NOSB, in my humble opinion, is about those two things. It's about providing a platform of conversation and discussion with your peers that have taken the time to volunteer and taken the time to serve. 15 members, correct? Yep. 15 members, yep. which is for a board, it's a lot of people. That's a lot of cat herding. No two ways about it, right? It's a lot of cat. It's hard. I know. I've been on boards. Big boards are hard to work with sometimes, right? But they're also fascinating because you have such a diversity of opinion and you have such a diversity of skill set that I would imagine that some of the conversations that the board has are fantastic to listen to.
They really are. Yeah, when you step back and you're really looking at from the values that are being represented, the trade-offs that are being represented, how it fits within the broader governance system. It really can be quite breathtaking. Even when people are talking about, there was a wonderful discussion recently about ion exchange, which is a really technical content question, but it was fascinating just listening to all the different dimensions of it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think it's great. So I think the platform is so perfect for the organic space, right? Because I think we're a very passionate industry. We've got a lot of opinions, we've got a lot of ideals, we've got and such a tremendous opportunity to make such a positive change in this planet. And whether we're talking about climate, whether we want to get specific about water, we want to get air, all of these things, right? It's just such a great thing that we have this opportunity. So to kind of beat the drum a little bit and hopefully maybe make some people go, oh, I'd like to serve, right? Because I think that's a really important thing, is that we find people that want to serve. I would love for you to have hundreds and hundreds of names to choose from, right? Because I think that goes back to the whole mission of being diverse and making sure that we have proper voices that are represented in all sectors of what we're doing. Why is participating in the NOSB important?
Because you really are representing a huge segment of the community, the industry, and people are speaking from the farmer seat, are speaking for farmers. People are there from the environmental seat, are speaking for the environment. And so the scientists are speaking for science. And so to have a voice, to be part of that harmony, even if there's some discord occasionally, you really are having an impact. That board members are in a industry that is continuing to grow. People are choosing organic, which means that people on the board are helping to shape that choice and determine what the seal is going to actually mean for all of us. So I really do think the impact that any board member can have is really tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you say, because I think organics is sometimes it's a morals and values decisions for people, right? I mean, they're connecting in some way, whether it's for their health, their family's health, whether it's for the environment, whether it's for things like fair trade and social causes that they want to believe in. But that is the beauty of this industry, is that we have such connective tissue to everything that we do back to the public and back to the consumer, that when you have an opportunity like the NOSB provides to be so instrumental in championing that message forward, I'm not sure that there's a lot of industries that actually have what the organic industry has in place today. I just don't. I just don't think it is.
And I think so. That's the greater good argument for being on the board. I think that the selfish reason for being on the board is you learn a whole lot. The organic, because it covers every single facet of agriculture. The amount that people learn and the connections people make, that getting to know other people throughout the industry, learning what their views are. A lot of people tell you my eyes were just really opened during the 5 years on the board. It's a lot of work. It's hard work, but the amount of learning, the number of people that they get to interact with and meet, the visibility within the community. So those are more personal choices, but I think are important to, it is about the greater good. And it's also about you and your kind of life journey of for 5 years, really being at the table of how this works.
Yeah. And that's beautifully said. You are at the table. You have an opportunity to make significant change.
Yes.
And as an industry that we are so passionate about this. I'm passionate about this, but you're passionate about it. You put 10 people there in this space. I don't think passion is going to be a word that's going to be lacking with anybody. And that's what I love about the NOSB. I love the debate. I love some of the dialogue. I certainly love all the words that are completely filled with consonants and no vowels when you get to look into materials lists, that's for sure. I mean, it's amazing. I've not participated in the NOSB before, but I've been to meetings. I've sat through meetings. I've listened to meetings. I've read material. I'm blown away by the depth and the thought process that's involved. So to your point, if you want to learn, if you want to elevate your personal game, this is a place that gives you that opportunity, whether you serve on the board or you participate with the board.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
I think that's super important. When I was thinking about the NOSB a little bit and knowing what I know and knowing how important it is to serve, something struck me, and I wanted to share this with you. And I hope this will resonate with everybody. I got to put the old timer glasses on now so I can see. But this is a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. And I just wanted to lay this out there to everybody that might be contemplating joining the NOSB, or I don't want to join the NOSB, or maybe they have issue with the NOSB because what they thought didn't happen for whatever reason. But this is just, I'm going to read part of this, and I think it's important. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by the dust and sweat and blood. I could read the rest of it, but I think I'll stop there because it really sums up how I feel about the organization, that we need people that are willing to step up and be a part of the process, because that is the only way you're going to get 63 employees or 64 employees, 65 people, and then all of it is we have to do this. We have to protect each other, right? And work together to find the commonalities that are going to be in the best interest of the industry, the planet, all of it. And I just love the fact that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, and so while we're protecting the seal, we're also protecting the arena to make it a safe place for people to have those debates and arguments and come to better solutions for the future.
For sure. I love that. I'm so pleased that we got to go down that trail, because I think it's super, super important. I want to talk a little bit now, just a little bit more about the regulatory priorities at LP. Just fill us in a little bit about, maybe a little bit more about what's kind of cooking and what's going on.
Yeah, so strengthening organic enforcement is really the big one. There's so many interdependent parts of that rule of closing exclusions.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so closing exclusions for uncertified handlers is a big part of that rule. Many aspects of the strengthening organic enforcement rule were outlined in the Farm Bill, and many came from National Organic Standards Board recommendations, and many came from our experience running the program. So it really is kind of the threading together of a lot of element. So uncertified handlers is part of it. Other parts of it are things like grower groups, labeling requirements for non-retail containers, for example. Import certificates is a very, very big part of the rule as well. So the rule has a lot of different moving parts that all relate to each other. Inspector and certifier staff qualifications, making sure we do have a robust pool of folks out there in various arenas protecting the label. So lots of different parts of it. We are working very hard on a final rule. A team has been processing all the public comments that came in last fall. We've been making some very difficult policy decisions based upon those public comments that I think will make the final rule better. And so that's been a very key regulatory priority for us. Origin of livestock is another one I just want to mention, because we did recently publish something in the Federal Register, and I think there was some disappointment that wasn't a final rule, but was rather sort of a call for comments. Yeah, I did want to mention that hit right around the 100-day point of the new administration, and to make decisions about regulatory priorities, to see those decisions through, to get them through clearance, to get them through the Office of Management and Budget, and then to have them published in the Federal Register within 100 days is really unheard of. And so I do want to emphasize that for the folks who maybe weren't as thrilled with where the process by which that's unfolding, I do believe it is the right process to have a final, good, strong rule that is the priority that the community wants. And sometimes that's going to take some time in the federal space, but it is moving quickly. And so right now, I'll stop there in terms of, because those are such important and high profile regulatory initiatives. They really are.
They're big. And I think, too, I don't necessarily know people realize when you talk about enforcement, you're also talking about enforcement on a global scale.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of product that, doesn't come inside of our country. There's product coming in organically from all over the globe. And
yes,
that is a very large undertaking to make sure that something's coming from over here is really what it's supposed to be when it gets here, because you've got an obligation to our citizens to protect them. And that's part of your process.
Yeah, and at the same time, you're working with very different local systems, both geographically, environmentally. So I think grower groups is an interesting part of the rule, because there are an awful lot of grower groups that aren't in the United States. And so, how do you regulate in a way that is fair across all borders? It also makes the rule process just more complicated, because other federal agencies really care about these things. Like, so for example, the U.S. Trade Representative will have, has always had thoughtful comments on these types of rules. The Small Business Administration, making sure that small farms, small businesses aren't unduly burdened by these rules. For this rule, Customs and Border Protection has been a very important partner in making sure whatever we put in the import section is actually possible through Customs and Border Protection system. So it's been a fascinating journey, and the international scheme does make it more complex.
Absolutely, no doubt. And I'm hoping, based upon where we are so far, people realize what a big job the NOP has and how important their work is, because there's probably people that have no idea that you are worried about something outside of our borders and making sure what's going on and the depths in which you go. And you talked about the livestock thing a little bit, about taking the time to do it right, to take the time. And I understand that, and I understand people get frustrated by the process, but it is a process. And I think when you have an opportunity to do something so great as to create that and to put that out there and to make it right, taking one more day to do it the right way should be something that we should invest in to make sure that we get the ball down the field properly. And I know that's probably going to make I'm probably going to get some emails for saying that, because I'm not, but it is what it is. And I think when you're in business and you're creating something, you're working with a brand, you're trying to develop people, it's a process. And if you force that process, I think at times to be too fast, too much, you end up spiraling a little bit, and you don't do the best job you can do. So I just wanted to say, I get it. And, I'm sorry that sometimes you're getting some of those nasty mails and some of that stuff's happening, but it's part of the game. I get it, because not everybody's going to be happy. But I think it's important to remember the massive scope of what things are. It's just not as easy as flipping on a light switch saying this is what it is. And so
we never underestimate the impact of both process and outcomes. And so we always have to weigh both what are the steps of the process and what are the outcomes that we're trying to get to. And they're equally important, process and product.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I appreciate you saying it that way. Way better than I did. Thank you. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a project that the USDA has, but I wanted to kind of frame it up a little bit. I was really interested, and I was doing some research and thinking about our time together. I found a stat that I guess I didn't know it. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but the fact that I read it this week was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. It's a number from 2019, so it's not too far off. But I was really surprised to see that 22.2 million people, full and part-time jobs, are related to agriculture in our country. It makes up in 2019, made up 10.9% of the U.S. employment. Fascinated by it. I don't know. I didn't think the number, but it's amazing to me that it's that big of a percentage of what we do. And I think it's really kind of cool. The administration today is really tackling some fairly big topics. They're talking about some pretty big things: climate for one, inclusion, things like that. But they're also working to ensure that there's equity across departments, and they're removing barriers to access, and they're working to build inclusive programs, and especially in the agriculture sector. So I would love for you to just share and tell everybody what's going on with the Human Capital Project a little bit.
Yeah, and I love actually that you framed it in terms of that statistics, because I don't think a lot of people realize how many people are involved in the production of an organic apple, or an organic granola bar. But yes, you have the farmers, you have the processors, but you also have the inspector, you have the quality assurance lead for the company, you have all of the accountants and all of the traders and all the people who are moving from point A to B. You've got the transportation folks. I mean, you've got, when you start really thinking about the supply chain, it's really quite remarkable.
It's crazy.
And so our job is really to oversee the integrity of the product. And there is a known shortage right now of really well qualified inspectors and certification staff across the industry. The industry has just been growing really quickly. And so in order for the industry to continue to be supported, you have to continue to grow the pool of folks who can go out and audit all these farms and trace all these supply chains and make sure that everyone's following the rules. So the Human Capital Initiative is designed, not to do like a specific training or to hire more people. It's really to develop a generation ahead. It's to establish new infrastructure and to create new partnerships that will build the future of human capital. And when we talk about human capital, we're talking about recruiting, retention, onboarding, building the next generation of people in the organic community. We're talking about people we want sitting on the board in 20 years. And so the projects we're funding now are, how do we find that kid who's coming right out of high school, or that kid who's sitting in a food science class in a freshman college class and doesn't have any idea what to do with that food science degree. We're talking about building infrastructure that shows them the organic option, that brings voices together that have not been brought together. I'm getting all sorts of emails saying, well, we're talking about partnering with all these other organizations. It is creating collaboration. Happens when there's a project for people to come together on. Otherwise, collaboration is a really cool, yes, we should collaborate. Until we have a project to work on together, collaboration is a nice idea, but we have a hard time getting it to actuality. And so our goal in this is not, again, back to process versus outcomes. Our outcomes here are 20-year outcomes of building equity, of building diversity, of building the pool of folks who will protect that organic apple that you and I will eat in 20 years when we're still eating, wearing our old person glasses. We'll be ready to go. So that's conceptually what it's about. Practically what it is a series of projects that we will be funding in a number of areas to build essentially infrastructure to build the next generation of diverse organic professionals who will protect the seal far into the future.
Well, when you think about talking about a generation ahead and being proactive, I think that's just amazing. And I think it's such a worthwhile project, and it's such a worthwhile idea. And you said something that I think is a little scary, which is we don't have enough inspectors, right? We don't have enough people that are, we do, but we need more. We need to understand as this thing grows to 63, 64, it's going to require more and more, and how important of a role the inspection process is in our deal, because we are an integrity-based organization.
Yeah.
The organic industry is integrity-based. So I commend the steps you're taking. I know you're a very large part of this project in seeing it through. And I commend the efforts that you guys are making. And I think that it is the right thing to do. I think anytime we invest in the next generation, whether we're talking about how to eat better food to elementary school kids, or putting a garden in their school, or these different projects that are out there that are trying to elevate the awareness of what's going on, I think that's in our best interest. And so I think that this project and the thought process behind it is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about it. Looking forward to a lot of great proposals.
That's awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you a couple other questions and just enjoy some time with you. Give me somebody in your life that's been inspirational to you, somebody that's uplifted you.
I'm incredibly lucky in that I have built a career actually by following people rather than jobs. And so the people who have inspired me the most are actually the people that I've worked for I've now been in the workforce for more than 25 years. And when I think back on my bosses, they have all been inspiring and have really led me to be where I am today. And I think most recently, and I don't know if he's going to see this or not, but so I am saying it genuinely, it's my current boss, Bruce Summers, the administrator for the Agricultural Marketing Service. He is completely inspiring. He is the portrait of the federal worker that you talked about at the very beginning of this segment, of people who are strong and steady and devoted to the rule of law and in meeting whatever administration's priorities are, because that's part of what the American people chose. And so he really takes that vision of democracy and care forward in a very, very inspiring way. So I have found working for him for the last 3 years just to be both a comfort and an inspiration.
That's fantastic. And the words that you used are all inspiring words, which I think, truthfully, they are. I mean, the way that it's just such a beautiful way of framing it up. I love it. That's such a great answer. So give me something, career or otherwise, whatever, wherever you want to go with it, that you're the most proud of.
I would say it is something from NOP. The Organic Integrity Database, it's a piece of software, but it's actually the project that I'm probably the most proud of, certainly since my time with NOP, but also before that. Before I came to the government, a lot of the work I did was with other federal agencies and nonprofits and coming together to build systems, both technological and just people systems. And building the Organic Integrity Database let me put into place all the things I had seen work and to avoid all the things I had seen not work, and working with clients for like 20 years. And so it was really kind of the epitome of, how can we build a system that really serves the needs of a community in a very lasting way? And Organic Integrity Database is another one of those things will be around in a generation. And that just means a lot to me, but it also means a lot to me of how we did it, of involving the stakeholders, involving the certifiers who are going to have to provide that data. And so it's from my job here, but it's something I am particularly proud of.
I would be proud of that too. Again, I think anything that you're doing, that you start using the word, it's going to be generational and going to have an impact of that magnitude. You should be very proud of that. I think it's really cool. Tell us something about yourself that maybe somebody doesn't know. Let's embarrass you. Let's see what's going to come out. Let's see if you're going to get in trouble here. Tell us something about yourself that maybe people don't know that you're willing to share. I had somebody share a story. about almost being killed in an avalanche. So the bar is pretty high about, yeah, that was a pretty hairy story. So the bar is pretty high. So share us something.
Yeah, I'll share something that actually shares a little bit about my philosophy and why I do approach human capital the way I do, and how I approach this team. Yeah, you mentioned my PhD right up front. What most people don't know is that actually my dissertation was about cancer. It was about why researchers, people who are researching cancer, why they share data with each other. It was about the motivational factors that cause cancer researchers either to share their data with each other or not for the purposes of advancing cancer research and care. So if I have gathered, for example, a collection of specimens from some breast cancer patients, what would cause me to share that data with you or not? And I really unpacked all of the motivational factors that cause people to do what they do. That there's always, and that's why earlier we were talking about public good, and about being on the board, but I also talked about why it's good for you, is because what I learned in my dissertation was that people actually, they're not sharing data because, oh, we ought to share data. I need to get published. I need to get tenure. I need to get my next grant. It was all very, very practical. Right. And there was also very personal. I trust you. And so I'll share data with you because I trust you. And I think a lot of this arena that we're establishing organic is establishing frameworks for developing trust so that we can share ideas and philosophies and values to get us to a new place. But a lot of people don't know that I worked with the National Cancer Institute as a consultant for a while, and it led to my interest in that topic, which is really different from organic and yet in many ways very much the same. So
I think that is absolutely a killer answer to that question. You're rising. You could be right there, number one. Now the avalanche guy may be
no avalanche. Sorry, I gotta go hiking now. I tripped across my office floor last week. I don't think the avalanche thing is going to be happening here.
That's awesome. So let's have a little bit of fun. Let's get you. Let's get off the reservation a little bit. Let's play a little TLC trivia. Here's some fast lightning round questions just to kind of get people to get to know you a little bit and have a little fun. So tell me, what's your favorite TV show?
I am a Trekkie, and so Star Trek Deep Space Nine is my favorite series. Yeah, it's just an amazing stories about metaphor and culture and archetypes and the human condition. Yeah,
love that. Great. So take out or cook at home?
Oh, I'm a heat up at home girl. Yeah.
So you kind of answered yes to both. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah. So let me ask this question. If you could go back in time and have a conversation with teenage Jenny Tucker, what would you tell her today?
See, this is something my therapist and I talk about all the time. And I would say it so both to my teenage self and to anybody else out there and who's a teenager or talking to their own inner teenager is be gentle with yourself. I love the quote that you really are a child of the universe and you have a reason for being here, and let go. It's going to be okay.
I love that. All right. Scale of 1 to 10. How's your karaoke skills?
Oh, not very good. You didn't get to say which one was worse or better, 1 or 10. Scale from 1 to 10, is one really good or one's really bad?
One's probably not good. Let's go with one's not so good.
Well, let's go with a -23 then.
-20. Well, just let me know if you go to the Applebee's to karaoke. I'm going to go next door to the Chili's. Is that what you're saying?
It would probably start the avalanche that guy got caught
under. I love it. I love it. You know, I have to tell you, I absolutely enjoy your company. I absolutely enjoy chatting with you above and beyond this. I think that what you do, what you represent, who you represent, your staff, your team, everybody that's involved. I just can't even tell you how much I appreciate you. I hope everybody else that's out here listening to us recognize maybe something they didn't understand, and maybe a little bit touches their heart a little bit differently about what the process is and how it works. And as I said in the very beginning, you know, a very heartfelt thank you to you and everybody there for what you do. And I have one final question that I want to throw at you. If there was just one thing you wanted people to know about the National Organic Program, what would it be?
Oh man, probably just how much, and I might get a little teary here, how much my team cares about you guys. The dedication and devotion from the people who choose to work here is, talk about inspiring. It really is. And I love every single one of them. And so please just know how much they really are pulling for you and serving you as a community. And I'm just so grateful to have the team I have. Yeah.
Well, folks, I can't top that. I can't put anything else on top of that. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jennifer Tucker.
That
thank
was
you so
fun,
much.
Todd.
Thank you so much for being here. Everybody,
Thank you.
thank you. Appreciate it. Wow, that was something special. Dr. Tucker, her words, her insight, and giving us some perspective about what's going on at the National Organic Program is exactly why I believe this platform, Todd-versations, is so important. We're so excited about the opportunity to share her story and so many more like that coming up. I want to first off thank all of our sponsors for participating. I want to remind you that this audio version of this broadcast is available on all the podcast networks, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everything. The video version is available on our YouTube channel, as well as our website, tlc.organic. We'll be updating stuff on LinkedIn, all the social media sites. Check us out on Instagram at TLC_Todd-versations. We look forward to hanging out with you again. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And again, we really thank you. Have a great rest of your day. And don't forget, go inspire somebody.